What's good, everybody? Happy Thursday. Hopefully you're having a great day. Um, today, today's video, I'm gonna let you know. I I let you know the last video, my favorite movies. This video, I'm letting you know my favorite TV shows of all time. I have a lot of favorites from the like going back to the 70s. Mind you, this was long before I was even born. But I do watch some 70s shows, some 80s, some 90s, 2000s. Um, it's a long list, so again, I'm gonna try to narrow it down. One of my favorite shows of all times. It ran from 1974 to 1979. Good Times. If you never watched Good Times, you need to go on YouTube right now. They have pretty much every episode on YouTube. Or if you have Xfinity, Comcast, you can go on demand and watch them. They got all the seasons on demand. Good Times, man, was it's undescribed. It's you can't describe it. It's like one of them shows that a lot of people even today can relate to. Like the struggle was real back then. You know what I mean? You had the Evans family. They lived in Cabrini Green, a rundown housing project. You know what I mean? With two bedrooms, one bath. JJ Michael had to sleep on the couch. On a pull-out mattress. Like that shit was real. All they ate for breakfast was oatmeal. Like that's how real shit was. If they couldn't afford meat, they pretty much ate greens and cornbread and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Without the meat. Basically, they ate side dishes without meat. And you already know, if you have side dishes, you have to have some type of meat to go with it. But they couldn't afford meat. It was so bad they couldn't even afford salami. We go to the grocery store now, we just pick up some salami and buy it like it ain't nothing. Back then they didn't have that luxury. That's like one of my favorite shows. JJ was hilarious. Every 5 minutes, Dynamite. That was really my favorite show. James Evans was like a father figure, to me, watching him on TV and stuff like that, because he was a strong black man. He had pride and he worked his ass off to provide for his family. He couldn't afford a nice lifestyle for them or whatever, but he put food on the table, paid the bills, put clothes on their back. What more can you ask for? You know what I mean? He tried to, he was there for them kids every day. Mind you, when you growing up in that time period and you struggling financially and stuff like that, most men would have bailed out, especially when you got three kids, a wife to provide for. That, most men they would have ran. James Evans wasn't that dude. He was there. You know, his kids, if they act up in school, he was ready with that belt to whoop JJ and them ass. James always had that belt handy, always threatening to whoop somebody ass. But that's what a real father do. He didn't play about school. Because James had, I believe, what, a sixth grade education. He had to drop out in the sixth grade to, help pay the bills when he was a kid and stuff. So he didn't really get his education, until he was grown when he got his GED. So, when it came to Michael and Thelma and JJ, he didn't play when it came down to, school. He took that seriously. So Good Times, they had Walona. Walona was my favorite. Yeah, I love Walona. She was funny as hell. She was the neighborhood gossip. Hilarious. Every neighborhood got a gossip. Every neighborhood. Even today, you got hell. I got one across the street. We all got a gossip in the neighborhood. You know. But yeah, Good Times definitely. You gotta watch that if you never watched it. Dope ass show. Another one of my favorites. The Jeffersons. Come on now, you had to have watched the Jeffersons, man. George, Louise, that shit was just it was a hot show. The way George used to crack on Tom and Helen, calling them a zebra couple because Tom was white, Helen was black. That shit was hilarious. Then of course you had the slick mouth maid Florence, played by the talented Marla Gibbs. The Jeffersons, some people say they couldn't relate to that show because he was rich or whatever like that, but you could relate to it. You really could, minus the money part if you ain't got it like that. But you definitely could relate to that show because they talk street talk. It wasn't all money, but it was definitely funny as hell. Sherman Helmsley was fucking hilarious in the role as George Jefferson. That swag he had about him. You know what I mean? Like, he's confident, he's cocky, he's a bit arrogant and a bit rude. But that's what made the show popping though, because he would go back and like George spoke his mind. That's how he was. Like what I'm saying. Whenever he would call Tom a honky or whatever, that was just because that was during that time, the 70s and stuff like that, where that's just where a time frame that it was in, so they would use that term. And George just spoke how he felt. But over time he did warm up to the Willises and stuff like that, and he didn't call him a honky all the time. They became friends in the later seasons. But it was definitely a cool show, man. I love the Jeffersons. I could watch that shit all day, especially George's Mother Jefferson. She could not stand Wheezy at all. She hated Wheezy. Like she stayed coming in there talking shit, criticizing the way she cooked, criticizing how she cleaned the apartment, like just criticizing everything. Like she just loved to do battle with Wheezy, man. But that show was definitely the shit. Another one of my favorites, Cosby Show. Let me tell you something, man. The Cosby Show, to this day, I could watch a marathon of that shit all day and not get bored with it. Like I love the Cosby Show. Dope show. Um, Cosby Show, man. They used a lot of analogies and stuff like that. Like, it was one particular episode, season 8. I think the episode was titled "With This Ring." It was the episode where Vanessa was engaged to Dabness, and this was the first time she told her parents. Mind you, they were engaged for 6 months. Cliff and Claire were shocked, so they invited them over for dinner. And they kind of gave Dabness the cold shoulder or whatever, kind of making them feel uncomfortable a little bit, because they were just shocked and upset by this. The fact that Vanessa lied to them for 6 months about being engaged, like she never told them. As a parent, yeah, you would be pissed off about that. I would definitely be ready to whoop somebody's ass. But it was something Bill Cosby said, because he didn't want Dabness to feel like Cliff and Clear didn't like Dabness because he was in charge of maintenance or head of maintenance, whatever it was. Um, like Cliff told him, he said, right now sitting there, you can be a banker and we would not like you. You could be a CEO, we would not like you. Because, and what he said, he told him the reason why. Because he asked him what his favorite food was. And Dabness said, the porterhouse was his favorite food. The steak, the mashed potatoes, stuff like that. So Cliff said, I take that food, I cook it for you. Sauteed onions, all that stuff. It smelled good. He takes a garbage can lid, puts the food on the garbage can lid, and he presents it to Dabness. That wouldn't be too appetizing. And like Cliff said, it's in the presentation. That's how Vanessa brought Dabness to the family, on a garbage can lid. That's the reason they didn't like Dabness. It wasn't because of him or what he did for a living. They didn't like him because of the way Vanessa brought him to them. And I swear to God, that was like one of my favorite fucking episodes. Bill Cosby showed in that one scene why he's smart as fuck and why that show was so successful. Because you know what? They had humor. They didn't have to cuss. They didn't have to none of that. And they did it all so sophisticated. It was so sophisticated. And it was classy. It was all that. And plus, you got Felicia Rashad. I love Felicia Rashad. That woman does not age a day. Like, that's like my favorite actress. One of my favorite actresses, Felicia Rashad. She killed it as Claire Huxtable. Like, she was nobody to fuck with. Like, you do not play with Claire Huxtable. You don't play with her. Theo and all the kids, man, they were a hot ass mess. They got into so much mischief on that show. And it was so cool to watch, man. I just love the Cosby Show. I watched all seasons multiple times. I probably watched every season hundreds of times. I can't even keep count how many times I watched. Like that's how good that show is. Um, Another one of my favorite shows. This is gonna go like anybody who follows me on Instagram, Twitter, this is my favorite show. A Different World. A Different World is a spin-off of the Cosby Show because it was at first about Denise Huxtable going to Hillman. But then by the second season, Lisa Bonet left and they focused more on Whitley and Dwayne, Kadeem Hardison and Jasmine Guy. A Different World, watching that show made me want to go to college. It really made me want to go to college growing up. Like back in the 90s and stuff, I was a little kid. Like I was like a baby. I was probably like 4 years old when I first started watching A Different World, and it was off the air by then. Because A Different World ended actually when the year I was born. It was ended in 93. I didn't really watch the show until probably 98, 99. So I was like 4 or 5 years old when I watched the show. And growing up watching that show, it was like it made me really want to go to college and experience college. You know what I mean? I knew, college wasn't going to be anything like the show, of course, because it's a show. But it really made people want to go to college. Not just myself, but from what I heard, it made a lot of people want to go to college. It was such a fantastic show. They dealt with so many things from teen pregnancy, alcoholism, drugs, domestic violence. They dealt with so many topics, and it was wonderfully done. And the person who was actually creatively behind the show from season 2 to season 6 when it ended was Debbie Allen, who is Felicia Rashad's sister. Debbie Allen is such a talented director and producer, it's ridiculous. She turned that entire show around for the better, because season 1 was a little bit on the bland side, but by season 2 to season 6 it was so dope. Like every storyline, every episode was just so hot. Like it's a show that you could never get bored with. Whitley was hilarious. Freddie was the hippie. I love Freddie Brooks. Like she was such a damn hippie. Like she wore the big curly hair, natural, the hipster looking clothes. Like she was all about saving the animals and the planet and stuff like that, going green. Like Ron was the playboy, entrepreneur. He loved the ladies, and some of the ladies didn't love him back, but that was cool. Ron was my boy on the show, man. But yeah, Different World was just it was a popping show. I could watch that shit all day too. Favorite, one of my favorites of all time. Another favorite show was the sitcom Roseanne, starring Roseanne Barr, John Goodman, Lori Metcalf. It was such a dope show, man. Watching that show was hilarious. Roseanne was hilarious, and I'm so happy that they're coming back with a revival. ABC has revived it, and it's coming back in early 2018. I can't wait for that. Roseanne is definitely it's definitely in my top 10 of shows. Roseanne was just all around fucking funny. I love Roseanne. The jokes up there was hilarious. Roseanne was just even in the most that's what I loved about Roseanne. Like even in her darkest hour, like when her family was going through so much, it was like she could just crack jokes. Like her dad died, and she would just crack a joke. It was a tornado, she would crack a joke. Like you know what I mean, to lighten up the mood and stuff. Roseanne just didn't give a fuck. Like that's what I loved about it. Darlene and Becky and DJ were the craziest fucking kids I ever seen in my life. Like they were disrespectful as hell, but it was so funny though. Dan, of course, he was the beer drinking, sit in front of the TV type of dad. He disciplined the kids, but Roseanne pretty much dealt with more of the discipline. Dan was just the lovable dad in the background. You know what I mean? But he got tough when he needed to. It was definitely a cool show. Ran for like what 9 seasons. It was definitely a dope show, man. I recommend if you've never seen Roseanne before, I recommend you watch that show. That's a dope show. My other favorite show is, don't laugh at this and don't judge me, Seventh Heaven, with Stephen Collins, Catherine Hicks, Barry Watson, Jessica Biel. I love Seventh Heaven. Like I grew up on shows like that. Seventh Heaven was definitely a good show. It taught great values. You know what I mean? You had a father like Eric Camden who's a preacher, at a church, and some of the people see preachers' kids as goody goody. You know what I mean? And that definitely wasn't the Camden kids. I mean, they had 7 kids. You know what I mean? So, Ruthie, Lucy, they all got into some shit once or another. Mary was probably like the baddest out of all of them. Like Mary, they had to ship her away to like Buffalo because of all the drama that she caused. Um, but yeah, Seventh Heaven, dope show, really dope. I believe it ran from what 1996 to 2007. Yeah, 11 seasons. That's a long time, man. So big ups to them. I wish they would bring Seventh Heaven back in some form or fashion because it was definitely a cool show. I think they should definitely eventually bring it back because it was one of those shows that you had to watch. Like, it was corny at times and cheesy, but it was the fun type. Um, Another one of my favorites. Let's see, had to be the Proud Family. Proud Family was another dope show. I love the Proud Family. Kyla Pratt, Tommy Davidson, Paula J. Parker. They even had Cedric the Entertainer playing his brother Bobby. That show was pretty funny. You know, you had the Gross sisters always jacking people and robbing people. You had, you know, Dejanay with her ghetto ass, always going after Sticky. That shit was just hilarious. It was all around fun show. Um, that was on the Disney Channel. Another favorite of mine, though, all time favorite kids show, Rugrats. Rugrats is my favorite. Tommy always had the fucking screwdriver he would pull out of his diaper whenever he needed to get out the playpen. That shit was hilarious. They always got into some fucking trouble. Angelica was a straight up bitch on that show. Angelica, yeah, I cannot stand Angelica with that damn Cynthia doll. She got on my nerves sometimes. Always trying to derail something. Um, but then she, you know, the favorite part about Rugrats was that even though Angelica was like a villain, you always had Susie Carmichael, to kind of be the person to, you know, rear her in and kind of get, you know, get her back in place in line. So it was always cool. Another favorite is Hey Arnold. They're actually coming out, I believe, with a Hey Arnold movie next year. So I can't wait to see that. Hey Arnold was a dope show, funny as shit. Helga Pataki. I couldn't stand Helga bald headed ass either. I could not stand Helga. Like she was a bitch to Arnold. But we all know she really liked Arnold on the low. That's why she was mean to him. Um, Hopefully in the new movie they address that. I hope so. But another favorite show of mine would have to be NYPD Blue. NYPD Blue ran from 1993 to 2005, 12 seasons. Like that's amazing. I loved NYPD Blue. You had Sipowicz. Sipowicz was a hard ass. Like he was a motherfucker. You didn't want to fuck with Andy Sipowicz, right? I'm gonna tell you that right now. Sipowicz, he would beat you down. He was an older guy. You know, he was in the 15 squad since, you know, for decades. You know, and by the end, he actually ran the 15 squad. NYPD Blue was like one of my favorite cop dramas. One of my favorites. Um, Another favorite though is New York Undercover. Listen, if you never watched New York Undercover, it ran from 1994 to 1998. It ran for 4 seasons. I love New York Undercover. It was so different than what was on TV at that time. It changed the, you know, it's definitely, you know, it changed the game for cop shows. You know, you had two minority partners, one black, one Hispanic, you know, and they were in, you know, they were in Manhattan, you know, police and shit. Two detectives, you know, it was a cool show. They had a lot of hip hop guys on the show. They had Biggie on the show. They had fucking Onyx, Sticky Fingers, and all them. They had Brandy on the show, MC Light. They had so many people on that show. Chuck D from Public Enemy was a performer on the show. That show was just all around good. Like the chemistry of the cast, down to the music, the storylines were always fresh and urban and popping. Like you just couldn't ask for a better cop drama than that show. It was sad that it ended the way it ended because I felt like the show got fucked up after season 3 when they killed off Michael De Lorenzo character of Eddie Torres. Once they killed him off, I felt like the show got fucked up. The show got fucked up after they killed him off in season 4 and stuff. I just felt like season 4 wasn't right. Lauren Velez though is one of the sexiest chicks on that show. God, she played Detective Nina Moreno. I love Lauren Velez. Like she was bad. If you don't know who Lauren Velez is, she also played on Dexter. Um, yeah. So I really did love New York Undercover. It was my favorite show. Um, don't think I forgot about this show, but one of my all-time favorite shows. This is the last one I'm going to talk about. Martin. 1992 to 1997. It ran on Fox. That and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Favorite shows. But Martin was the funniest. Out of Fresh Prince, I would say Martin was the funniest. And I have to mention the Wayans brothers. I'm trying to squeeze all these shows in at one time right now. So the Wayans brothers was my favorite, but Martin, you couldn't ask for a better cast on that show. Carl Payne, Martin Lawrence, Tisha Campbell, Tommy Ford. Tashina Arnold. You couldn't ask for a better fucking group of cast members. R.I.P. Tommy Ford, who played Tommy Strong. Tommy ain't never had no job. We could never found out what Tommy job was on that show. We never found out. Sadly, we never found out. But then you had the Shanae character, the Jerome character, the Roscoe character. He always had the snot coming out his nose. Martin was so fucking hilarious, man. It's like you just there was not one boring episode of that show throughout its 5 season run. Never not one boring ass episode. You know, it sucked how that show ended in a way towards the end, but you can't take away from the greatness of that show. That show is it made history. Like it was like one of the best shows on TV to this day. People still watch that shit and it never gets old. It's like watching it for the first time all over again. Like it's just that dope of a show. But yeah, that's almost all of my favorite shows. I have plenty more, but I'm gonna save it. So hit that comment button. Let me know what your favorite shows are. So let me know, and I will see all of you later. Have a great day. Peace.